Akkermansia muciniphila is a probiotic that's often marketed as a way to boost GLP-1 and promote weight loss. And while there is some research suggesting it may do both, the reality is a little more complicated than what the marketing would have you believe. When you look at the relationship between Akkermansia and body weight, researchers find that people with higher levels of Akkermansia in their gut tend to have lower body weight. Research has also found that overweight and obese children generally have lower levels of Akkermansia compared to with leaner children. But these findings are only associations. They tell us that Akkermansia and body weight are related, but they don't tell us whether having more Akkermansia actually causes weight loss. So do we have clinical trials that can answer that question? We do. In one small study, overweight and obese individuals were given 10 billion units of Akkermansia every day for 3 months. The researchers found modest weight loss, along with improvements in several metabolic markers. Interestingly, the study compared both live and pasteurized, or essentially dead Akkermansia against a placebo. And surprisingly, the dead Akkermansia actually performed better than the live bacteria when it came to reducing body weight and body fat. In fact, other research also shows that Akkermansia may work even better when it's pasteurized and dead. More recent research has also found that taking pasteurized Akkermansia after losing weight through dieting may slightly reduce the amount of weight that people regain. But what about the claim that Akkermansia can increase GLP-1 and improve metabolic health? Here the evidence is interesting, but again it's not quite as straightforward as the marketing suggests. Lower levels of Akkermansia have been associated with a higher risk of metabolic conditions such as obesity and diabetes, and this relationship has even been observed in genetically identical twins. Animal studies, particularly in mice, also suggest that Akkermansia can have beneficial effects on the gut and metabolic health. The strongest human evidence for GLP-1 comes from a study in which participants took pasteurized Akkermansia for 4 months and had a greater GLP-1 response following an oral glucose tolerance test. But there's an important distinction here. This doesn't necessarily mean Akkermansia simply raised their baseline GLP-1 levels throughout the day. Instead, Akkermansia helped the body produce a stronger GLP-1 response after glucose was consumed. However, the more meaningful clinical outcome, whole body insulin sensitivity, was not significantly improved in the overall study. In fact, another trial gave Akkermansia to overweight and obese individuals with type 2 diabetes and found no significant overall improvement compared with placebo in either body weight or blood sugar. However, there were some smaller benefits among participants who started out with particularly low levels of Akkermansia to begin with. Akkermansia muciniphila is a type of bacteria that naturally lives in the human digestive system. In healthy adults, it typically makes up around 3 to 5% of the gut microbiome. What makes Akkermansia particularly interesting is its ability to break down the mucus that lines our intestines and use it as an energy source. This helps support the normal turnover of the gut's mucus layer and can also provide nutrients that help other beneficial bacteria to grow. Akkermansia also produces compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs, which are important for maintaining a healthy gut. SCFAs are also produced when our gut bacteria ferment dietary fiber from foods like fruits, vegetables, and legumes. These compounds provide energy to the cells lining the intestine and can have anti-inflammatory effects. In turn, this may help maintain the integrity of the gut lining and strengthen the gut barrier. SCFAs may also influence metabolism by interacting with hormones and other signaling pathways involved in appetite and energy regulation. This includes hormones such as leptin and ghrelin, which play important roles in hunger and fullness. So in theory, having more good bacteria that produce SCFAs could potentially help regulate appetite and make it easier to control food intake. So how do we put all this together? Does Akkermansia muciniphila actually increase GLP-1 and help you lose weight? There's no question that Akkermansia is an interesting bacterium. People with low levels tend to have a higher risk of obesity and metabolic problems, and research suggests that the supplementation benefits may be greatest in people who start out with unusually low levels. But that doesn't necessarily mean taking an Akkermansia supplement will always lead to major benefits. If your Akkermansia levels are already within a normal range, there may simply be less room for supplementation to make a difference. When it comes to weight loss, the effects appear to be fairly modest. Akkermansia may help you lose a small amount of weight and could potentially make it easier to maintain weight loss after dieting. But if you're taking it specifically because you expect it to cause significant weight loss, you're probably going to be disappointed. The same basic story applies to GLP-1. Some marketing may make the GLP-1 connection sound much more impressive than it actually is. Akkermansia has been shown to produce a small increase in GLP-1 after a glucose tolerance test, but that's very different from directly and substantially increasing GLP-1 levels, like medications such as Ozempic or Mounjaro. And even if Akkermansia produces a small bump in GLP-1 after eating, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll see a meaningful health benefit, since studies have not consistently demonstrated improvements in more important outcomes as a result, such as insulin sensitivity. Perhaps the biggest challenge for anyone looking to take Akkermansia for its potential benefits is simply getting enough of it. The studies that have found benefits have generally used relatively high doses, often starting at around 10 billion units per day and sometimes going considerably higher. The problem is that many supplements provide far less than this, with some containing less than 1 billion units per day. There's also another important detail to consider. The research so far suggests that pasteurized Akkermansia, essentially a non-living form of the bacterium, also known as a postbiotic, may actually be more promising than live Akkermansia probiotics. That means you'll also need to pay attention to how the dose is measured. With live bacteria, you'll typically see CFU, or colony-forming units, which measure bacteria that are alive and capable of reproducing. But CFU doesn't really make sense for pasteurized Akkermansia because the bacteria are dead. Instead, these products may use measurements such as TFU, or total fluorescent units, which estimate the total amount of bacterial material present. You may also see AFU, or active fluorescent units, which attempt to identify bacterial material considered biologically or metabolically active. The problem is AFU can be harder to interpret because its meaning depends on the specific testing method being used. So when comparing pasteurized Akkermansia products, they're both fine, but a clearly defined TFU is generally easier to interpret than AFU. But even if you find a product that provides an adequate dose, there's still a bigger question. Is Akkermansia the best probiotic to take for weight loss or metabolic health? The research is interesting, but Akkermansia isn't the only probiotic with human evidence behind it. Some strains of Lactobacillus gasseri and Lactobacillus rhamnosus have also shown potential benefits for body weight and metabolic health. Interestingly, these probiotics have gone through their own period of hype. At one point, certain strains of Lactobacillus were heavily promoted as the next big thing for weight loss, much like Akkermansia is today. But as more research accumulated, the excitement eventually died down and the limitations became clearer. These probiotics may provide small supportive effects on body weight, but they aren't the game changers that the marketing sometimes make them out to be. And when the actual benefit is relatively small, you really have to ask yourself whether paying a premium for such a specialized probiotic is really worth it. Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Young. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments down below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, please share it with them. Finally, if you enjoy what we do and want to learn more, consider supporting us on Ko-fi, and be sure to check out our other socials as well.